Hey y'all, and welcome back to another Photography Friday. My name is Jane Corley with Pick Visions, Media Arts and Photography. If it's your first time here, welcome. On this channel, we do tips and tricks for new photographers who are trying to hone their craft and become better photographers and media business artists. So let's get started on today's tutorial, outdoor photography and tips for outdoor lighting techniques. Lighting techniques in the outdoor photography realm can be really easy or they can be really complicated. You just need to know what to look for. Outdoor photography is probably one of the most used session locations available because most of the time it's free and you have a multitude of backgrounds to choose from depending on your studio space. So let's jump into the basics of outdoor studio and outdoor lighting techniques when you bring a client or just somebody you're going to take photos of out to your outdoor session location. Like in most of my other videos, first step is to get set up for success. Make sure that your camera is good to go, it's nice and clean, your batteries all are charged, your tripods are packed. If you know that you're going to need extra lighting, make sure you have that all ready. You have your vagabond, your power source, as well as all of your cords and cables that you're going to need for your shoot. Bring almost an emergency kit for your client. If you're doing babies, make sure that you have a little bit of extra sunscreen. If you're doing models, make sure you bring a hairbrush. Just make sure that you have, oh, I've got that for your client if you need it. And it'll just make the day go by a little bit smoother, but you're going out to a location and you don't have, what you bring with you is what you have. So have it, not need it, and need it, not have it sort of thing, but don't overpack. Most of all, make sure your camera's good to go and make sure that your batteries are good to go and you have all of your cords, cables, and batteries that you need ready to rock and roll. Have your tripod. Like in any other video, I cannot stress it enough, use your tripod. If you have the ability to check out your session location first, super. Check out what your session location has to offer and see where you have areas of reliable shade, areas of open sunlight areas, and areas where you can move fluidly from one session location to another within this greater scope. So parks, even like a town hall area, or places with little fountains, and just you want at least 3 or 4 options in your outdoor session location, and if you can get ones that have a variety of lighting, then it's a good start. If you cannot get to your session location before your session time with your client, then look on Google Maps. Google Maps has a variety of filters you can put on the maps, and if you go to the all-terrain satellite view, you'll at least be able to see areas where you have cloud cover and kind of know what direction you should move through your session location space. I do have a whole session location video, so check that out if you have any other questions about session location and how to pick out the best session location. So the basics of shooting. Basics of shooting, you need to be on manual or aperture priority mode. If you're not there yet, then that's fine, but just try to get there before you bring somebody out and shoot. You don't want to be shooting on full auto because there's just too many variables and it's not something that you're going to have a lot of control over. So if you're shooting in aperture priority and you can set your aperture and everything else is at least on auto, you'll have options to work with and you'll be able to get different shots, different depths of field, different angles, and it's going to look better. Manual mode, if you're all the way out on manual mode, go and try and stress how you do your ISO manipulations. Go and see how you can manipulate your white balance and just really excel at getting better at those as well. Understand your exposure bracketing, and if you're able to do a few test shots before you put some film together for your client, take some test shots and really figure out if you need to bump up your exposure by +1 or take it down by -1, and to get that perfect shot, to get the most out of your shadows. Outdoor lighting is mostly noticing where you have light and where you don't have light, and then using a reflector, which is my next tip to bring and to not forget. With a reflector, you're going to be bouncing back light back onto your subject where you're not getting enough light. So if you have harsh shadows on this side of your model's face, and over here it's almost pitch black on the side of their face, you can angle a reflector in front and it will bounce light back onto your subject. So have a reflector with you when you are doing your shoots in outdoor locations. If you do not have a reflector, that is okay. There are reflectors in nature. If you are in a cityscape, try to put yourself near maybe a white vehicle. White vehicles will bounce that light back up onto your subject matter. If you are in a little park or a nook with a fountain, that fountain water is reflective. So if you can position yourself and your subject where the sun is here, the fountain is here, and you are shooting your subject, you will actually balance out those lighting elements that may have been too shadowy, too dark over on this side of your subject. So find those little nooks of light and little elements of reflection to bump up your strategies in outdoor photography. If you are shooting on a cloudy day, awesome. A cloudy day is like nature's light box. It is covering you in a plume of balanced fabric light that will just make your subjects look wonderful. But with balanced shadowed light on a cloudy day, you eliminate all shadows and any sort of tonality giving depth to your photograph. Even though your shadows and your highlights are nice and smooth and manageable and your colors are all rich, play around with your perspectives more on cloudy days so that you can get that degree of angle and perspective through your photographs that your shadows and highlights would normally show. Put those back in your image. Use a fill light when you are shooting on harsh sunny days or you do need more light added to your image. But if you are using an on-camera, maybe even the flash that's on your camera, which it looks flattering on no one, just shot straight on, it flattens your image, y'all. Don't use it. Don't use it. And if you must use it, spread that light out. That light is directly shooting onto your subject and it's going to flatten that image. So if you're able to even just take a business card, a white backed business card, put it underneath your mounted flash built into your camera and spread that light somewhere other than just straight forward. It's going to give such a depth to your image and it's going to stop it from being flat. If you're using a mounted on a hot shoe flash, typically those have diffusers. They spread all the light out and make your images look good. But it's still good to try to bounce the light out into the ether rather than bouncing the light straight onto your subject matter, because it's going to create a flat looking image. Now sunlight. If the sunlight is too harsh on your subject and it's creating very harsh shadows and your model or whomever is squinting and they just don't enjoy it, you can have them close their eyes and open them on the count of 3. 1, 2, open. And if that still doesn't look good, take it from an angle. Don't put anybody into direct sunlight or something that's going to make their face contort in a way that you're not going to want it to, because it's just, you're going to end up deleting that image. It's a waste of time. Don't do it. So try to get the light at a flattering angle so it's not directly on the subject and they're comfortable and you're not having to coach them through something that they're not wanting to do anyway. Find different types of areas in your shooting location that offer varieties of light. So you have the bright sunny that we were just talking about. Then you need to have maybe a little bit of dappled shade, something that's bright sunlight, but at least you got a tree hanging overhead, or something that's between the subject and the light source. Then find areas of shade, mostly shade, and few spritz of sunlight, something that's going to be a little bit less than full shade. Then find your full shade environments where you can not worry about any harsh shadows. You just need to make sure that it's bright enough, the image is exposed enough so that it is not too dark. If you can, shoot in the golden hours, 1 hour after sunrise and 1 hour before sunset, even up to 2 hours depending on your horizon, what everything looks like between you and the sunshine, and shoot during those hours if you can, because it's really easy to manage your shadows and your highlights anywhere during golden hours. So if you can, do it. Shoot your images in RAW. I know I haven't done my RAW video. I promise it's coming up, but here is sort of a Reader's Digest. RAW is preserving every single thing that you can possibly preserve in that image. Your camera sensor is pulling all of the information that it possibly can, all of the contrast, all of the colors, everything it possibly can, saturating that image, and it's going to look flat, it's going to look boring, but once you put it into post-production, you are going to easily be able to manipulate and make that photo look exactly the way you want it to. A raw image has a massive dynamic range. It's massive. It's going to let you pull everything out and enrich all sorts of delicious elements within your photograph that shooting a typical JPEG, just JPEG image will not enable you to do. And yes, a JPEG is a much smaller image, but that should tell you something. A raw image has more information, so of course it's a larger file. Next tip is to bring a white, gray, grayscale card, whatever you want to call them. I've heard them called tons of things, and your light meter. Like I said in my previous video, they have light meters on the phone, and they have gray cards and white balance cards on a phone now. But just, I'd rather you get creative and have a physical piece of paper as a gray card and a white card. It's just, I think it's more reliable just having it in real life. You can get what you need to get from paint sample stores. You don't have to buy them if you don't mind getting it that way, or they have them online for like $1. So get a grayscale card and bring a white balance meter, or set it on auto white balance on your camera, or use the settings in your camera. There are options to choose from for white balance if you're working in partial shade or full sun. Those selections are available, and I encourage you to consult your manual if you have any questions about how to get to that setting. But use full white balance or one of the white balance settings in your camera if you do not have a grayscale white balance card or you don't have a light meter. So let's talk about some setting options in your camera. First and foremost, the rule of 16. The rule of 16 is f16, so your aperture is at f16, 1/100 for your shutter speed, and 100 for your ISO. Then start making adjustments from there. When you are in environments where there's little to no sun, try having a wider open aperture so you don't have to sacrifice so much on your shutter speed, and you can maintain that 1/60th or quicker shutter speed to avoid any potential blur. And your aperture will actually be a lot more flattering in the low shade environments, because that shallower depth of field behind your subject is going to give you a better image. So in full sun environments, you have a lot more to work with your aperture, your shutter speed, and your ISO. Your ISO, I would encourage not to go above 600, and with your shutter speed, you can really do whatever makes your aperture happy, and your aperture, do whatever you want to do with your aperture to get whatever sort of perspective and depth of field elements you want to work with. But don't overdo that ISO in full sun environments. And make sure to play with your reflectors or reflective items, and don't get harsh shadows. Don't put harsh shadows in the backdrop. Use a lower depth of field to almost diffuse those elements if you're getting harsher shadows in the backdrop, and just calculate the light, calculate the angles of the light, and make sure to position yourself and your subject matter in areas that are going to be kind to your shadows and your highlights. So my last few tips: make sure to be conscious of background distractions. I've said this in my previous videos before, especially my session location one, when we talked about background distractions. Do not have children running on the beach in the back of your wedding engagement session photos. Do not put construction signs in your street photography high fashion photos unless you do it on purpose. Those elements are just, it looks like you just didn't pay attention, and it can ruin an image, and it can be really aggravating trying to take that out of a photo if you get a winning photo and you have a traffic cone in the background, bright orange, distracting any viewer from the subject matter of that photo. This is an opportunity for you to make the most of your composition. Try to maybe hide those background elements by the subject of the photo, so the subject of the photo is in front of those elements, hiding them all together. And don't be afraid to take test shots. If you say, hey, let me take a few shots here and there, it's not going to make your model or the person you're shooting doubt you. It's going to say, oh, okay, well, they want to make sure to get it right. Use supporting elements in the background to enhance the image. So have your model interact with the location. Have them lean up against a tree or sit on a bench or just become part of that environment and use those outdoor elements to your advantage. Lastly, framing. Frame your subject differently. Don't just take pictures of headshots or from the knees up. Your best bet is to actually divide them between the joints. So if you're going to be taking a photo, don't take it from the elbow up. Take it from the mid-arm up if their arms are down. Take it from the bicep up. Take it from the calves up, from the middle of the stomach up. Do not take photos and separate by joint. It doesn't look good on anybody, and the image is awful unless you're wanting room to crop. This framing and use of change in focal length will also change the look of your image based on your shutter speed and aperture relationship, as we learned in our exposure video long time ago. But change your framing and your focal length so that you're giving your client something to choose from. You're giving them options. So I do hope that this video was helpful on some outdoor photography and outdoor lighting techniques. Make sure to tune in next week when we talk about event photography. We're getting to some good stuff now. I'm really excited. We're out of the really basics realm and we're trying to get a little bit more into the tips and practices of a media business owner. And as a photographer, I'm just really excited to share all this with you. So I'm looking forward to next week when we do jump into event photography. Do leave in the comments below any tips and tricks for your fellow photographers on how to perform better in outdoor lighting situations and outdoor shoot locations. So look forward to seeing you guys next week. I'm Jane Corley with Pick Visions, Media Arts and Photography. Make sure to like this video if you learned something new, subscribe to the channel, and ring the bell so you can be notified every time a new video is uploaded every week. Until then, see you later, guys.